You are listening to SPN, the Sports Podcasting Network.
اليمين هناك لشوارزنيجر
Ya lo hace, pierna derecha, directo al arco, golazo, golazo, golazo.
This is Soccer Today, live on SPN Radio, your new live show about the beautiful game in all its glory, with Duane, Rollins and Kevin Laramee. MLS, EPL, La Liga, Champions League, all is fair game. Powered by the Sports Podcasting Network. Visit us at sportspodcastingnetwork.com.
And good day, good night, and welcome back to Soccer Today. I am Kevin Laramee, joined as always by Duane Rollins on location in Bell Vegas once again. Duane, a lot of things to talk about today on an abbreviated version of Soccer Today, but did you see that Alexis Sanchez free kick goal? I have to say, it was quite beautiful against Borough.
It was, and it's going to look wonderful next year when he does that in sky blue.
Or maybe royal blue?
We'll see. Certainly the rumors are swirling around that. The Wenger out, whether that comes out. People, of course, today the UK election was a snap election that no one saw coming.
Yes.
Theresa May, the Prime Minister there, obviously, called the snap election, and so people were joking that Wenger should announce that he was staying on today because it might get buried. Otherwise, it wouldn't be. I still think it'd probably lead the headlines if they did, but the Sanchez stuff isn't going to go away until that goes away, and certainly a very talented player nonetheless, though.
A needed victory for Arsenal on Monday Night's Football, 2-1 against Borough, and Borough needed it too, but seems like Borough stint in the Premier League was a 1 year stint and not more because they're going down.
Yeah, and look, that's a team that had, they sort of blew up a few years ago, as those that know financially. I'm speaking after they went to the UEFA League, or wasn't Europa League, it was the UEFA Cup at that time final, and they re-clawed their way back up to the top, and they're going to take a step back down again, it looks like. But sometimes clubs like that, and there is a history there, and there is enough size there that I think that they can stabilize and certainly get into a mid-table Premiership sort of level again. But maybe a little step back down isn't the worst. And the teams that are coming up are going to be challenged, I think, again. Although Newcastle looks like they're going to go back up automatically, and maybe they'll finally figure it out and stay up this time. And
sorry to interrupt, Duane, but you know who's coming back up for the first time in 30-something years, I believe? 34 years. Brighton and Hove Albion are coming back to the Premier League. It was a pitch invasion in the weekend at the stadium at Brighton Hove, and it was quite interesting to see. On social media, we both have many people in our bubble that are either Brighton Hove and Albion fan or are former employees of that. And the goalkeeper coach for the Montreal Impact, Jack Stern, the new goalkeeper coach for this season, well, he is from that part of England, and his parents were in the pitch invasion, and it's you can find the photo on social media, on his social media, Jack Stern GK, and you can see very interesting pictures of the actual atmosphere that was present at the stadium when the promotion was confirmed. It's the actual romanticism, right? It's the beauty of promotion right there.
Yeah, we'll watch the glory of relegation later on, and before we have a full debate about this. But
people crying and leaving, and yeah, that's not pretty though.
Precisely. No, I look into. We're working on a guest, which you could probably figure out who it might be, if you know us. In the next few days, they might be able to talk a little bit more about what that club is and what that club means to that community, and what this might mean for the community. And look, anyone who's been to the UK, to London, from over here, which is many of us listening to this, have probably been to Brighton because it's so easy to get to, and it's kind of going to be a fun little trip, I think, for anyone who goes over to watch games next year too, because it seems like it'd be a fun place to watch a game. But nonetheless, we're going to talk a little bit more about a couple promotions in this second segment. But I think that right now we should turn our attention to what I think is probably the biggest news of yesterday, and that would be the official announcement. It's not a surprising announcement, but the official announcement that that the captain of Chelsea, Captain John, is going to be moving on. John Terry announcing that he intends to leave Chelsea at the end of this season. Kevin, now you are a Chelsea fan.
Yes.
What are your thoughts of John Terry moving on?
Great career. Could be arguably one of the best defenders in England history. His length of his career, like the longevity that he had, and since 1998 as a 17-year-old making his debut for Chelsea up until winning the Champions League 2012. He was there in 2004 when they were winning with Mourinho the first time and the second time. And yes, he only made 4 starts this season, not the most implicated defender in this year's title run, but he is still part of the club, part of the roster where the motivation, kind of like how Ryan Giggs was late in a career with Manchester United, where his knowledge is more passed on not by example on the pitch, but by communication, by reassuring, by motivating young players when necessary. And the rise of young defenders have given him less playing time, but he will leave Chelsea. Apparently, a lot of clubs are trying to sign him, not Major League Soccer, but 488th apparition for Chelsea and 40 goals for a defender that was feared in the box, on set pieces, on corners, and feared off the pitch for different reasons, which we're probably not going to talk about, but you all know what we're talking about. Interesting career for John Terry, one of the best England's defender ever.
Yeah, we should probably just put a bridge right over some of those old issues there. Look, obviously, to briefly speak to that, there was some off-field stuff that causes controversy, and John Terry caused controversy in his career, and you can't ignore that when you're looking at the overall player in person. But nonetheless, his playing performance was unmatched for many years. He was, in many ways, the best English defender, I think, for years and years and years. He's not anymore, clearly, and it clearly is the right time to move on. It might have been the right time to move on a year or so ago. I find it interesting. You sort of touched on the MLS thing a minute ago, and since we are a show that does primarily focus on North American soccer, although we put a little nod to Europe as we're doing right now, I think it's worth noting that Major League Soccer teams are like getting ahead of this story already, saying that they're not interested in signing him. Because if you look at social media and you look at the reaction to this, there's sort of a flippant assumption by those that dismiss Major League Soccer that obviously he's going to go to the retirement league now, whereas I think the retirement league would expose him a little bit because of the physicality and sort of the requirements to be
speed.
Quick, fast, speed.
The pace. He would be like windmill Deke every single time. He would be literally a moving cone in Major League Soccer, especially at some places where he's unused to play on the ground, the pit. It would not be pretty, I think, John Terry in Major League Soccer. And I think China, of course, but I would not dismiss Australia as a very highly probable destination for a John Terry. I would not dismiss a move to the Australian League for John Terry because of there's less of a culture shock. You still have a pretty decent pay. The level might be closer to what he can do, and well, the weather is pretty nice as well, depending on which team you choose. So I would not be surprised if John Terry doesn't end up in China, but in Australia.
The A-League is a league that we don't hear as much about anymore. They are nearing the end of their season as well, by the way, if people are interested in that, and maybe we'll have a quick look at that down the line. But certainly that would be a destination that would make some sense. He's also been linked to some sort of mid to low table Premier League clubs, Bournemouth being the one that's that's sort of jumping out the most. There was a Bleacher Report, say that twice or 3 times fast. Anyway.
I like Jack Wilshere.
That came out. It came out today that suggests Bournemouth is a possible destination. And look, there's logic to that too when you speak to that sort of his contribution through exposure sort of stuff. That if he's there and he helps the younger defenders, the up and coming players sort of learn the game and think the game a little bit better, then that's going to help overall, even if maybe his physicality might not be able to do as much. So that is another possibility, but. He also does, if you look at sort of his off-season activities from last summer, you saw him in Beijing, you saw him in China quite a bit, and there was some speculation then that he was sort of trying to prime business interests over there. in front of a move to China. Now, that said, the Chinese league, we haven't talked a lot about it lately, but we do still see a lot of people go over and come back pretty quickly. So you got to be a little bit leery of that. But to go back to Major League Soccer one last time on this conversation, the pylon is probably, he's a smart player and he knows the game very well. There's no doubt about it. But you look at Pirlo and how much he gets exposed defensively, and you can hide Pirlo up the field. You can't hide a center half, right? Like you can't. He's going to get exposed. Nothing is worse in Major League Soccer than a slow center half, and I don't think that would work at all, and it would not be a very good thing for John Terry's career or legacy, I think, to go over there right now. But
and I think he probably did talk about it to Steven Gerrard, like, how was it? And should I go? And Steven Gerrard probably mentioned, John, don't even go. Why would you go? I did not enjoy myself on the pitch, at least. When I was playing for LA, it was more difficult than I anticipated. And add the fact that you'll be a defender, not a midfielder. Yeah, John, don't do it.
Yeah, that is quite possibly the word. You can hide a forward because forwards' brains can take them places, can find them space that will allow them to overcome some speed deficiencies. Midfielders can have cover around them so that they can utilize the skills that they have. I go back to Pirlo again, as much as I bash Pirlo quite a bit, and which makes me feel guilty because he is one of my all-time favorite players to watch in the history of the game.
But we're watching the games. It's not our fault if it jumps out. It's like it almost doesn't compute to me. Like it doesn't fit. Like you see the energy output, you see the always like a step behind, and it kind of jumps out, which when we're watching NYCFC Pirlo. So I don't want to do some Pirlo bashing either, because we all love the Pirlo and the Pirlo philosophy, and the Pirlo is, for the longest period of time, he was winning the battle against Father Time. But Father Time has the very intricate skill set of creeping up on you when you don't expect it and hitting you really hard. And that happened last offseason for Pirlo.
Yeah, unless you're the keeper, his former teammate, then I think he is Father Time, Mr. Buffon. But anyway,
yes.
That's a different story.
Father Time eventually will be changed, and his name will be Buffon.
There you go. A different story. Those Italians, they play late in their career for sure. No, but yeah, you know what it is with Pirlo. I don't know why this got into a Pirlo conversation now, but it's like it makes you sad because you remember, and then you look at him now and you go, you still see flashes though.
It's like Fat Ronaldo. It's like when we used to see Fat Ronaldo, be like, "Oh, he used to be so good."
Yeah, there's still a flash because of the brain. But yeah, center half though, no, you're just going to be exposed, and it's going to be embarrassing, and you're going to put the club into a very bad situation. Any club that in MLS that signs him are like, that's a TFC 2012 move. Like it just would not work. And I think most MLS teams are understanding that nowadays. It's not that an older player can't have a role in Major League Soccer, and nor, we're seeing it with Schweinsteiger, who's not that old, but I think we think of him as older than he is. But certainly he's been able to step in and do things really well so far for Chicago. Going to play his first ever career competitive game in Canada this Friday. That's got to be a landmark in that career, right? Anyway.
Oh yeah, he has this date circle around his calendar. That's for sure.
Yeah, I know. He's been looking forward to that his whole career, competitive game in Canada. It's exactly something he's been thinking of. However, the point being that guys like that can come in and contribute and can do things, but you got to be careful on who the ones you select. And I don't think John Terry is the right man for MLS at this particular point. And I don't think many people would argue with that. But in terms of his career in England, as I said, it's undeniable the role and the impact he's had for English football, for the Premier League. He is identified with the Premier League. I mean, the Premier League era, I should say. Really, he's been there as long as most people listening to this show have been watching it, and it's going to be very weird to see a Premier League season without him. But as you said, Father Time does, in fact, always move on, Kevin.
Yep, they always, at the end, stay up for the 10 count.
Exactly. All right, shall we take a quick break, come back and do some bits and bites?
Exactly.
You are listening to Soccer Today, live on SPN Radio. Visit sportspodcastingnetwork.com for more.
Duane, something happened in the last couple of days in Division 2 World, and we'll talk about it probably more tomorrow. But, when we saw those 12 bids in January and 2 in the North Carolina, South Carolina, the one Raleigh-Durham and Charlotte, we were wondering if both were viable, both were sustainable, and both had merit to be in those 12 teams, 12 bids for an MLS franchise. And the City Council of Charlotte have decided not to go forward with the stadium plan. So that tells you a lot about, do they believe in that plan bid?
Yeah. I mean, they deferred it to be 100% accurate. But right now, they're not going to go forward, which, look, I don't want to, dead in the water is a strong way to put it, but maybe it isn't. And when we were handicapping these bids, Charlotte was always the one that I put last anyway. So this news today that the Charlotte Regional Council or City Council, I forget which one it is, but they're politicians there at any rate, have decided to defer this vote until the fall in terms of stadium funding. To me, that suggests that really Major League Soccer, they already have probably, at the very least 10 other bids that are more attractive to them to begin with. They have another bid in that region that might even be more attractive. I don't think that they're going to end the expansion at this phase. If I'm Charlotte, maybe what you do is you refocus your efforts and put a better bid forward to the next time they open this up. And if that's 6 years from now, that's 6 years from now, because I don't know if they're quite ready right now. But
so I feel right now, Duane, out of the 12, we have our second that's kind of out of the running for the next 2 to 4 expansion team, which St. Louis, with the same type of decision by the council, no to municipal funding and for the stadium plans. So it's kind of like we're down to 10 now.
Yeah. And there's been other bids that have sort of are quietly just going about their business and seem to be, have things a little bit more in order. You look particularly, I think some of the stuff that's happening down in Phoenix right now might be helping them out a little bit with their ability to draw some good crowds and to have some success with that pop-up stadium. Has demonstrated, I think, that they might have the will to at least have something that is workable for a while in Major League Soccer's mind, if it comes to that. You look at Cincinnati's continued attendance success this year so far, and they're not really making a lot of noise right now. Sacramento is obviously ready to go as soon as they give them the go-ahead. And, if Sacramento doesn't get this bid at this particular time, then I don't think it'd be Major League Soccer be losing out, right? That wouldn't be Sacramento, because I think Sacramento might be ready to throw their arms up.
Exactly. Well, they're saying, what will it take? What else do you want us to do?
And look, I look at the last, not the last expansion, but I look at the last double expansion, which that isn't even true because that's this year. I'm trying to get this out of my head right. I'm looking at the Portland Vancouver expansion.
Yes,
I'm trying
2011.
to say, which was the last sort of extended sort of bidding process expansion. There's similarities to this one and that one because there were multiple cities that were bidding for these and we all knew it and it went for a long period of time, whereas the expansions that have come since have sort of been singularities, right? They've had like, okay, this team's coming in, this team's coming in, this team's coming in. They've been announcing them as they go, as opposed to having kind of a competitive bidding process. So the last time we've had a competitive bidding process was the one that Vancouver and Portland went in. And Portland was kind of like Sacramento at that point, that there seemed to always be in that process other cities that looked like they were more likely, but in the end of the day, the slow and steady train. What's that old child's adage? The turtle in the hare.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. The hold and steady slow and steady wins the race.
Yes, exactly. That's I think what you might be able to look at Sacramento, because there's all these sexy things. They're sprinting out, look at me, look at me, look at me, and then something crashes and they fall back. Whereas Sacramento just keeps chugging along, and ultimately at the end of the day, they may in fact be standing because MLS may look at it and go, well, this is viable. And, we might not get the market that we want. We might not get the same sort of sex appeal that we want, but another Portland. And I think that nowadays, even though at the time, and I know that there's some listeners out there that probably weren't around in MLS and following MLS when Portland, Vancouver came in, to realize how similar it was in the fact that we all look at Portland now and go, oh, well, of course they're one of the glamour teams in the league. And obviously Major League Soccer would have wanted that fan base and all that in there, but it wasn't the case back then. It was because it's Portland, it's smaller, and there's already Seattle and et cetera, et cetera. And, once it happened, it was the best sort of the stake that they backed into, and I have maybe a hunch that Sacramento might be coming in a similar way, Kevin.
Yep, exactly. So it'll be interesting to see, but we're not going to see anytime soon Charlotte in Major League Soccer. Raleigh Durham, probably, maybe, who knows? But for the Charlotte one, right now, a setback happened.
Yeah, it's quickly on that before we move on and maybe talk a little bit about the promotions that happened yesterday. It's an interesting region, and the bids don't seem all there, which is why I ranked them so low. But that area of the country, it would be a natural rival for Atlanta. Even DC, you could play into that. Like there's something to like about the area, but at the same time, you need to have your full bid together. I'm just not too sure either of those do right now.
Yeah, exactly. And you just mentioned it, and we talked about it early off the top of the show. Brighton got promoted. They will be in the Premier League next year. This historically successful club years ago, before the Premier League era, are back in the Premier League for the first time in 34 years. How important do you think it is for Brighton and for, in the era of big clubs, to see the old clubs coming back to the Premier League? Brighton, we had Borough, right? We Crystal Palace, and maybe Forest in the near future, and other clubs coming to the Premier League that used to have success. It's kind of fun to see those clubs back.
And Leeds, you could put into that mix as well.
Birmingham and Leeds were the two I was looking for as well. But it's going to happen for Leeds before Birmingham, but yeah.
Yeah, Birmingham, they might go down before they come back up. And
well, their coach just resigned. Like their coach literally just went public a few days ago, like, yeah, you deserve a better coach. I resigned. So.
Yeah, so that's it. Well, and Red Rapids took over today, so there's some news there as well. But look, to answer your question, it's nice to see some clubs that have good history, and this goes into one of my favorite arguments of all time. I hate it when fans of popular teams or successful teams suggest that teams don't have history if that doesn't mean if they haven't won before. I think you're misunderstanding what the word history means. Anyway, these clubs have great history and they have great connection to their communities, and that's the key part to it here. Look, the South Coast has been traditionally underrepresented as well, and it was actually a very good day for South Coast football yesterday, because if we go way down to League Two, Pompey went back up. Which, and if you know the story of Pompey, that's a team that flew high, won the FA Cup, and made themselves bankrupt in the process. Had to go all the way down to the bottom and struggled there for a few years, and now at least they're crawling their way back up the pyramid into League One for next year. And I think that that's a club that we'd all like to see at a higher level. But I have for years now sort of, I've never been a Leeds fan per se, but for instance, to go to a different place, but I kind of want them back at this point, because I think that we've lost something with having that club not in the top flight for all these years. And, there's people that hate Leeds that probably are yelling at their device right now, but I kind of disagree. You want to see new blood come in, because that's fun. When Bournemouth came in, for instance, and I think we've all kind of enjoyed having them there for a while, although they're sort of kind of leveled out now and the novelty's done. But
yeah, but they're still performing like better than expected. So no, you do. It's fun to see a project coming in, and you know what I mean. Like, it's fun to see a project coming into the Premier League and staying there because of their identity that they've forged in the process of getting to the Premier League, and not just getting to the Premier League like Cardiff City, changing the whole squad and then getting relegated right after.
Yeah. And I mean, are we really better off with Villa gone? One of the historic teams of England. Are we really better off with Newcastle yo-yoing lately?
True.
These are teams with massive fan bases and around the world, even in Newcastle's case. I was at the pub watching a Toronto Wolfpack game on Friday, on Good Friday, actually, and there was championship action then, and there was like 10 or 12 Newcastle fans sitting there waiting to watch their game in the championship, which was on TV that day. And that tells you sort of the reach of a club of that size, even though they haven't been yo-yoing the last few years a little bit.
Well, they're just down. The first time in years have been down, but yes, Newcastle. But they're going to come back up probably.
That, but yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, the point being, they have a lot of fans, and I think we're better off with them in the Premier League in many ways. There's always got to be some room for smaller clubs to get themselves back up there and to force their way in. I would never want to see, a situation where only the richest of the rich can ever succeed in the Premier League. You do like to see clubs evolve and get there, like Stoke, for instance, if you look, we think of them as, part of the they're part of the wallpaper now or whatever,
Yep.
right? Like they're just there, but they weren't just there forever. I remember running into one of their fans about 6 years ago and talking to them, having a long conversation about them, how they'd gone over the previous year when Stoke had just gone up. And if my numbers are off on the years, I apologize. I don't have a computer in front of me, but regardless, he had gone over to follow them around, even though he lived in Canada and had for several years. He went back to England for a year because he didn't think that they were going to last more than a year in the Premier League, and he wanted to experience it. Well, they've been there every year since because they've managed to establish themselves, and that's a good thing. That's, say what you want about Stoke, but it's still a positive thing for Stoke fans. It's a positive thing that a club can come up there and can establish themselves in the Premier League. They sort of get stuck in a purgatory at a certain point, as I think Stoke is. Like, what the hell are they? What's their purpose at this point, right? Especially since they don't seem to care, or the clubs like that don't seem to care about cup runs, which is kind of an issue that I have in a different topic. But nonetheless, it is nice to see them get established there. And you hope that when a club like Brighton does come up, that they can have some success and they can stay for a few years, and maybe that they can become another Stoke. Maybe they can become another team. And ultimately, you do never know. They could become another Leicester, because Leicester got the money and they got up there, and hell, we all know what happened last year, and they're playing a Champions League game today.
Exactly. Newcastle is the other very probable team going to be promoted. 85 points second in the championship table right now. Brighton first with 92 and confirmed without promoting. Now the playoff for the promotion will be interesting, Duane, because you have right now Reading, Huddersfield, Sheffield Wednesday, and Fulham. Sheffield Wednesday, another team with a lot of history, might be coming back to the Premier League next year. Leeds United just off the playoff race right now, but they're tied on points with Fulham at 73. So it will be a tight race with very few left. I think there's one game left. So Fulham and Leeds will be battling for that last spot, giving a ticket to the playoff, which could give you a ticket to the Premier League.
Yeah, I kind of miss Fulham too. Fulham wasn't necessarily a traditional team because they got some money and jumped back up. And it was a team that a lot of Americans that listened to us loved because they had Americans there. A lot of Canadians liked them too, because Paul Pescasolino played there for years when they were in the championship and actually scored the goal that sent them to the Premier League. So that's a club that I think a lot of us in this part of the world miss as well. Real quickly, Kevin, before we move on from this, I just got a confirmation email from Paul Byrne that we will have a conversation with him about his time in Brighton and about what that club means. Probably on Thursday of this week. So that's something to look forward to on Soccer Today at that point.
Perfect. Something to look forward to today, Duane. Champions League, the second leg of the quarterfinals. Leicester, Atletico. Leicester down 1 goal, surprisingly, still just 1 goal, but today will be difficult at home, trying to get that result and continue their great Champions League run. Real Madrid against Bayern Munich later on, but I'm more looking forward to tomorrow's Barcelona, Juve. Will Juventus continue on their run, 3-0 advantage for Juve, or will Barcelona pull out another game like against PSG?
This is not your big brother's Barcelona, it just isn't. This team has some serious flaws, particularly at the back. PSG exposed them, and then they panicked. PSG, again, and we mentioned this last week when we talked about the game, as much as that was a great miracle comeback, it was fueled by a really terrible refereeing decision as well. And once that panic set in and they sat back and we all know what happened after that. And it was one of those, comebacks for the ages, and everyone enjoyed it and we'll remember it that way. But I think to expect them to be able to do it a second time against a club that is clearly better than PSG it's not realistic. And I'd be stunned if Barca does it. If Barca does it again, then hell, maybe you could start talking about Team of Destiny stuff, and they might be the favorite to win the Champions League at that point.
Okay, so how about this? They either are out or they're going to win this and win the whole damn thing.
Yeah, and I go more towards the former is the likelihood. In fact, I have a sense that this will be, it's in Barcelona, so I don't think it'll be a blowout, but I just have a sense that Juve just has too much and they're going to be too smart. And it's a team that was in the Champions League final just a couple of years ago too, so it's not a bad team, right? So they're going to have the smarts to figure this thing out and to get through it. And I'd be pretty stunned. In terms of today, the Madrid teams have to be your faraway favorites, and I do maintain that if they avoid each other in the semifinal draw, that I would still be hesitant to pick against another all Madrid final. we talked about the Leicester situation and how we felt that was the worst possible case of a draw for them, as much as it might seem otherwise in terms of on paper, just stylistically speaking. And I think we saw that bear out in the first leg where, I was sort of trying to watch both games, so I didn't watch it as detailed as maybe as I might have otherwise, but it did certainly seem to me that Leicester didn't have much going forward. And I just can't see at a club like Atletico losing its focus. Simeone would kill them. Would you want to? If he was your manager, I'd be terrified to lose my focus.
Never mind the focus. Just I'm not sure they're going to lose their shape. So never mind they'll be focused and organized.
Yeah, exactly. And if they score one goal today, that one's all over. I think pretty clearly. But
speaking
of the other fixture,
Madrid and Bayern Munich, right? But we all know this is just a dry run for Madrid for their for their true important game this year, right? They only have one game circled in their calendar for Real Madrid, their true important game against the MLS All-Stars this summer, right?
I was it's not El Clasico. No, it's the All-Star game. That's got to be the one they're going for. Or the possible, to win 3 Champions League titles in 4 years. That can't be it either.
If you're a player of Real Madrid who's like, I don't know, let's use this number 6 or 7, but you score 4 goals against MLS All-Stars, you'll get sponsorship deals after this thing.
Yeah, no, maybe. Although, to be serious, if they do win 3 and 4, which is what it would be, you start to have to talk about that club, as being one of the greatest clubs of all time. And we don't really have that conversation about them. Barcelona still seem to outshadow them, but yet, because I think Barcelona outshadows them because they've done better in the league. But we also are looking at Real Madrid very likely to win La Liga this year as well. So you really do have to start having a conversation like that about where they rank all time if they do manage to pull this off. You had a lot of football to play, though, of course.
Yeah, the Cristiano Ronaldo era at Real Madrid has been amazing, like maybe the best run ever for a club. Exactly. And it's been sustained. There's supporting cast has changed here and there. The Benzema era, now the Bale era, you had a different partners for Cristiano Ronaldo, but his time with the Galacticos has been tremendously successful. Like if you look at the amount of trophies, the amount of individual award, team award of success of different competitions won, different type of football played, different type of formation identity that evolved as well with the play in different positions for Ronaldo and use him differently. It's been a tremendous, like you mentioned, it's one of the best run ever for a club in the history of the game.
Yeah, and you extend that to their crosstown rivals and look at Madrid as a whole. This is, got to be close to a high water mark for the city in terms of where it stands. It is the center of the football world right now. I think in terms of its overall success level, and an all-Madrid final would not catch anyone off guard. You got to feel a little sorry for Atletico that they have this run, which is probably amongst their best in history as well at the same time.
And they'll lose again in the final.
And that would be very sad for them. And they had leads in both of the finals too. People forget that as well. They had a late lead in the first one. At any rate,
all right. It's never enough.
Any final thoughts, Kevin, before I get on a train and get the hell out of the Bay Quinte region?
Well, you stay tuned to the Sports Podcasting Network. We have a brand new edition of Scuderia F1 reviewing the Bahrain Grand Prix coming out right after this live show. Soccer Today live all week, 10 a.m. As mentioned earlier during the show, Thursday we will have Paul Byrne to talk about. We're going to talk about Brighton this time around, and we're going to talk about the history of Brighton and Hove Albion and how their journey back to the Premier League, how it's shaped, and how now it will be perceived in Brighton for this more glorious and momentous occasion for Brighton. And until tomorrow for Soccer Today at 10 a.m., you can follow Duane on Twitter at 24th Minute, myself at Kev Laramee, and the show at Soccer Today SPN. Have a great Champions League, and until tomorrow, have a great soccer. You were listening to SPN, the Sports Podcasting Network. Visit us, sportspodcastingnetwork.com.